Hi, I'm Edward Funk, and this is Podcast 84. Clark Gable is back to life of Loretta Young. And that's kind of an interesting thing that's developing because if you remember, like 14 years earlier, he impregnated her and then she had her secret baby, and that story went on and on and on. Okay, now back to this podcast. Now, why would Loretta Young agree to make a film with Clark Gable after those tumultuous 14 years earlier? The trauma of being impregnated and giving birth to a secret baby, her daughter Judy. Now, Loretta replied, well, it was a way to disavow the rumors. In other words, making another movie with him was a way to disavow the rumors. I thought that people wouldn't believe I'd have the guts to work with Clark again if those rumors were true. But also, Loretta now viewed him through more sympathetic eyes. She commented, after Carol Lombard, died, Clark was devastated. He was quieter after that, more serious. He was in shock for a long time. Now, what happened? She died coming back from Indianapolis, where she was on a war bond drive. Came back to home. This is more my own voice. I have to add the note that I've read in other sources that Gable was having an affair with someone else while Carol Lombard was out on the bond tour. So maybe he was on a guilt trip rather than being in shock. So take that for what it's worth. Now, while the film, it's called Key to the City, was in pre-production, Loretta and Clark concocted an arrangement for Clark to meet Judy. The pretense was meeting at the Lewis's home on the Doheny Ranch. Z. Wayne Griffin, the producer, was also invited. Judy was entertaining her girlfriends with a swimming party that afternoon, and Loretta took Clark and Griffin down to the pool to make introductions. Judy squirmed with delight at meeting the king in the same manner as her friends did. She had no reason to think that Clark Gable had any special connection to her. A second effort was made years later when Loretta and Gable arranged for him to stop by the set of Loretta's television show where Judy was working as an assistant. However, Judy had a doctor's appointment that day and was late getting to the set. By Loretta's account, the meeting at the pool prior to the filming of Key to the City was the only time Judy saw her father in person. From Loretta's perspective, a meeting between Judy and Gable that Judy related in her Mommy Dearest type book was a total concoction. Okay. There was an added irony to Loretta and Gable's reunion on Key to the City. Loretta was pregnant and at this time overjoyed at the prospect. Her joy soon turned to sorrow. Loretta recalled, Clark and I were doing a scene on the back lot. I felt very touchy all day. My stomach was jumping, my back started to hurt. All of a sudden, I started cramping. Clark was looking at me and he asked, what's the matter? All I could get out was, oh, I'm so sick. And that's the last thing I remember. I just lost all my strength and he caught me before I hit the floor. Restroom on this set, and they sent for the doctor. Wait. Somehow my papers. Oh, I see what's going on here. Now, an ambulance took me home. I had been in bed for about an hour and a half when I lost the baby. This miscarriage nearly killed me. I didn't get babies easily. They closed the picture until I was able to return. Everyone is very kind. The day that I came back, Clark sent some flowers to my dressing room, and the note said, I can't tell you how sorry I am. I know how you must have wanted this baby. I thought this was very sensitive of him. Now, Clark had shown his sensitivity towards Loretta in another way 5 years earlier. Loretta recalled, Tom and I had gone to Louis B. Mayer's home. He's the guy that was running, that guy at MGM. And it's not unusual at a dinner party when a host splits up a couple to different tables. So I thought nothing of it when Tom went his way and I went mine. I had just sat down when Clark came walking up behind me and said, hello, sat down next to me and started talking. Suddenly I felt so flustered, I realized I wasn't making any sense. Finally, I said, Clark, don't talk to me right now. I'm so nervous, I really don't know what I'm saying. He looked at me a moment, smiled, and said, it's okay, I understand, and immediately turned his attention to the lady on his left, which gave me enough time to collect myself. In a couple of minutes, I was fine. But I also realized Mary put it together to give his party some spark. I didn't appreciate it. Now, the 1950 nominees for Best Actress by Motion Picture Arts and Sciences were Loretta Young for Come to the Stable, Olivia de Havilland for The Heiress, Jeannie Crane for Pinky, Deborah Carr for Edward My Son, and Susan Hayward for My Foolish Heart. Loretta voted for Olivia de Havilland, and she picked the winner. In a candid moment, Loretta observed, they were never going to vote for Loretta Young in the role of a nun, and any actress who played the heiress would have won that year. Loretta tried to integrate herself into family life when she wasn't working. She recalled a particular afternoon when Peter was fine from his home. I had taken him to the doctor to get a shot, and I had promised him that if he didn't cry, we'd go to the Brown Derby for lunch, just the two of us. He didn't know what the Brown Derby was, but he knew it must have been something special. He didn't cry, so the two of us went to the Brown Derby. And of course, the head waiter was making quite a fuss. As I walked in, I spotted Bill Getz at one of the other booths, sitting with some other men. So we nodded to each other. I hadn't seen much of him since I finished off my contract with International, when they not so subtly suggested either I have an abortion or I lose the contract. On his way out, he stopped by the table and I asked him to sit for a minute, which he did. He kept looking at Peter and I couldn't resist. I said, well, do you think he's worth $5 million? And he said, oh, Loretta, don't even talk about that. There was not a thing in the world I could do. I was outvoted on it. I said, I know that, Bill. And I did know that. Loretta recalled about the same time, I became aware of a big problem with Miss Smith, the boy's nurse. She was handling my 5 and 6-year-old boys in the same manner she had when they were babies. We were still living at the Doheny Ranch, and my bedroom was right above the porte cochere where the school bus picked up the kids. I could look out the window and see them getting on. It was our moment to wave goodbye. This particular morning, I watched Pete say goodbye to Miss Smith and climb onto the bus. Then I watched Chris. He said goodbye to her. I was stepping out of the bus when she said, oh, give me one little hug before you go. So Chris came out and he gave her another hug. She said, I'm going to miss you all day. Well, she finally worked him up so that he didn't really want to get on the bus at all. But he did, and I thought to myself, that's it. She has to go. Miss Smith was replaced by Miss Call. Loretta remembered her as the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. She came into my house and spent most of her time swimming in the pool, hoping to attract some producer's attention. She lasted about 3 months. Miss Coney, a Scotchwoman, came next. It was the beginning of a relationship between Loretta and Miss Coney that would continue for the next 38 years. Now, in the next podcast, that's podcast 85, Loretta unintentionally calls her husband's bluff. The ugly truth gets laid out on the table. So I'll see you then. Thank you. Bye-bye.